Okay, guys, how's it going? So, today, we've got something a little bit different kind of planned for this. Now, some of you may recall that about 2 years ago, I did a video similar to this about what comes after after Lost Belt 7. And in that, I speculated that we weren't going to enter EOS, we were going to go to some other part of the story. I think that we had some confirmation on the ordeal calls, like a little bit at that time, on like at least for NA news. But I mean, that we knew that like that aspect of the story was going to wrap up, and we knew that there was probably going to be more content coming. Well, right now, if you have been living under a rock, we are currently entering into the final parts of FGO's entire Part 2 story. Now, if you don't know what the Part 2 in the Part 1 is in FGO, Part 1 is from when you start the game up until you get to the Temple of Time part of it. It's the first about year of the game, more or less, year or so in the game since it was released. Maybe that went through 2 years. I'm trying to remember really off the top of my head. I think it was 2 years because Camelot was an anniversary thing. But Temple of Time was part 1 of FGO. And then for the last 8 years, we have functionally been in part 2, which a little bit time discrepancy on that, which is kind of funky, but I mean, that's aside from the point. But, you know, right now we're finishing up that aspect of FGO's story. We're done. You know what I mean? Like, it's over. We are wrapping it up. We are making our grand triumphant return to Chaldea to go and kick Olga's dad's ass. And I mean, I'll tell you what, that's about as much as I know about what's going on with it because I've not been reading the JP story. I have an inkling of what's going to be happening. I don't really know for sure. I have an idea behind, like, you know, I understand what the ordeal calls are about because that stuff's been released on NA, and we need to get our social credit score back up with the world. That way we can go and finish the game. Now, anytime that FGO says that it's concluding like anything, really, we always get this crowd of people who goes and they scream about, we're going to enter the end of service, or we get a separate crowd of people who are just like, what's going to happen? I don't understand what's going to be happening next. How could they possibly go from here? Well, I'm hoping that with this video or stream or whatever you want to call it, maybe we can just talk about it. Just get air out my own thoughts before things actually wrap up. And, you know, see where they go. So, let's just go from there. So, right now, like I said, what we're going to be seeing is, we're gonna be heading back here, right? We're going to be heading back here to, like, figure out where things are going to be going. And ideally, what we assume the story is going to be is that we're going to show up, we're going to kick Marisbury's ass, and then we're going to reclaim Chaldea in some form. I assume there's going to be some big old, like, Avengers Assemble moment where everybody comes together and we finish off, like, everything else that's going to happen, and it's going to be great, right? And at the end of it, either we survive or we don't, and MASH is going to be thoroughly traumatized, and hopefully we are right there with her. But what comes after this? What do we do next? Well, regardless of how Part 2 ends, there's going to be more to follow. That's kind of where my brain goes. At the very least, we know that through the 11th anniversary, because that was confirmed in an interview, as well as pretty much them explicitly telling us that servants in the silhouettes that we received are going to be, like, one of them's going to be released next year. So it's not going to be one of those things, like, things are just going to, like, drop and then it's going to be over. You know what I mean? Like, they're not just going to be like, all right, we're wrapping up Part 2, that's it, right? But that doesn't necessarily mean that we're going to be getting a Part 3. Just because Part 2's ending doesn't mean we're going to get a Part 3. So here's the thing. And this is all very well dependent on how Part 2 wraps up. We may see these, like, months after the conclusion of Part 2 still have some story and events, but more so in the vein of, like, wrapping things up further and showing us cleaning up the fallout and any loose ends that may be around. There's been like a pretty heavy emphasis this year on the conclusion being something a bit more final than what we've seen in the past, with both the recent Gouda Gouda events and like the Halloween events stressing their finality. Mind you, Gouda Gouda has done a final Hono G for real, absolutely, this time guys were serious, every other event. So that one, take with a grain of salt. And then the Halloween one, they explicitly explain why it's called the final Halloween in the event, and it's because Da Vinci says she's sick and tired of there being Liz's and the absurdity of it. So it very well could just be the devs like having fun knowing that people are kind of freaking out and drumming up more attention that way. I wouldn't be surprised if that was the case. So let's look at the possibilities of what I believe could come next, or at least, 3 of the possibilities that I think are the most likely. So, number 1, FGO enters EOS after the 11th anniversary. And I say the 11th anniversary personally because I feel like that would give them time to wrap up the rest of the story after the whole Chaldea thing. They said they're going to go through the 11th anniversary, and then after that, maybe they'll just drop the game and be like, alright, this is it, thanks for playing. Number 2, FGO starts Part 3 after the 11th anniversary. Which is just, alright, well, game part 2's over, let's go into the next part of it. Or 3, FGO has a major overhaul of some variety, right? Now, let's kind of break these down one by one, shall we? Let's start with that first one. We're not entering end of service. I apologize to everyone who blames all of the world's sins on FGO, but you have created that monger, mind you, and that curse will be deflected back at you. To put it frankly, FGO makes too much money for it to end in any permanent way. It's a cash cow for Sony, and they know it, and despite what Reddit or Twitter may tell you, the game is still insanely popular in Japan. If you follow this stream, you've definitely heard me talk about it before, but of every single mobile game I've seen in the 4 years that I've lived in Japan, more people play FGO publicly, on transit, in cafes, at airports. One of my co-workers has the faux loading screen as her background and plays FGO. And she's up to date on JP. These are random people on the streets. These are not like your typical, Reddit gamer people. And this could very well just be confirmation bias because, the game is it's just a game that, I'm very much attached to, but the game is still very popular here. I will say, if you're curious what the second one is, Puzzle and Dragons. People fucking love Puzzle and Dragons around here. It's crazy. Yeah. Additionally, they have made, mention of wanting to bring every servant that hasn't received one of, an animation update. They want to make sure that all of the old servants who are still throwing caster orbs or doing their weird stick hit things, they want to make those characters have proper animation updates. And that is so much work to do for a game that is going to be getting scrapped in 6 months. It's one of those things where, while I don't think it can never end, right now, calling it quits would just be a bad decision, and it still would not lead to Red Garden being written. Sorry. So that brings us to the second major possibility. What happens when Part 2's over? Well, you don't know? That means Part 3 starts. They're just going to start Part 3, and it's going to have us go into a brand new story. Realistically, this feels like the most plausible outcome, and I would assume that the 11th anniversary will be the new starting point. But it begs the question of what we could possibly do that would triumph over reclaiming Chaldea, which is putting a nice bow on both ours, Mash's, Olga's, and the rest of the Chaldea crew's stories. Now, my go-to theory for what they should do for something like this is to hire the Chaldea staff at the Clock Tower. From here, we, in MASH, can explore the actual world that we have saved and solve problems that were created by the Bleached World phenomena. Additionally, we can very easily be hired on as ray shift specialists to deal with singularity anomalies as they pop up because of the distorted nature of the post-Bleached world. This would allow for a solid easing into a new setting and set up for new stories to be told while maintaining the spirit of what FGO is all about. It would also be an easy way to introduce new characters, naturally into the story, create conflicts, and find ways to explore the past of the Cryptors and possibly figure out more about Marisbury and his weird sketched out past. It would also be very cool to see like actual human versions of fan favorite characters like Waver acting in a much more pronounced role. Or, you know, at least to me this makes like the most sense as a solid step towards beginning of a part 3. Now, the other theory that I have, which would be the third point, kind of falls into the same basic premise of us leaving Chaldea and working for the Mages Association, but we change... Well, no, this isn't the third point. But, you know, we change who the main characters are. There would still be the boy and the girl character, and they will be studying ray shifts or singularities at the clock tower or something like that after the events of Grand Order. And we can have Ritsuka and Mash as either teachers or in a senpai position. And, you know, because we're a gacha game protagonist, they'll see great potential in us or something and somehow manage to transfer the bond of our current servants over to them to bypass having to start from zero. Now, if they choose to pull a stunt like this, I would imagine that we would receive different versions of the servants than the ones that are affiliated with Ritsuka. Much in the same way that the Hakunos can summon the extra cast, but they are different from the Chaldea ones. So if you don't know, because you're on NA, there's a character in FGO, it's Hakuno from the Extra series, and they are able to summon for their attack animations characters like Gilgamesh, Tamamo, Nero, etc., all the people who show up in Fate Extra. Now, those characters, and the ones that you summon in Chaldea, different characters, because of how the servants work with the Throne of Heroes. I would assume they're going to do something like that. Now, I kind of really like that idea because it can lead to new interactions between the characters, which would be kind of a breath of fresh air. And in doing this, they could also keep the main characters in the game as more Sherlock-esque characters, and Mash could also stay as somewhat of a replacement for Da Vinci as the shop manager. Which isn't to say we're going to get rid of Da Vinci, but, you know, it'd be a way to keep one of the faces of the franchise permanently relevant. And, you know, I would imagine that if that did happen, if they do ever choose to switch up the main characters, there is going to be a new quote-unquote Mash, which would be kind of neat. It would be kind of interesting, though, if they did the thing where you could choose if you want a male or a female companion with you. I doubt they do that because that is so much extra work, but, you know, might be a nice little thing. Also, if they do try and, like, go this route, I assume that maybe they would let us do a little bit more in the way of character creation, but I doubt it. You know, it's one of those things that's kind of up in the air. So, before I go on to my third point, I'm going to pause very temporarily for questions. So if you would like to ask anything, you may do so now. Tammy, floor is yours. Part 3, Mashu and Ritsuka could become the new directors of Novum Chaldea. That'd be interesting. FGO is a bit of a dated game right now, gameplay-wise. I'd love for them to go on hiatus on the JP side of things for 2 years while NA catches up, and use that time to do a mega update of sorts. It's funny you say that. We will actually be touching on that later. Do we know all of the beasts? No. Thoughts about being Atlas affiliated instead? I think it'd be interesting. When I say the clock tower, I'm just thinking of that as like the one that most people are like familiar with. Hold on.
What foreigner-related stuff for part 3?
That could be interesting.
If we do go the no protect path, would the servant versus servants follow them under the orders of the Ritsukas?
I'd assume they'd become affiliated with us in some form. I mean, foreigners would be the way to tackle a part 3 if we were going to do it. If we wanted to stick with like a, you know, a thing that hasn't been tackled yet in part 2. Mind you, I think the foreigner thing is going to get touched on in the conclusion. Wouldn't it make more sense for Ritsuka to just die off and Mash to be yoinked into the throne, so that we now have to spend money on her? I don't think so.
They no protest will be Ritsuka's and Mash's children. Yes, Yodakos too.
I mean, that'd be interesting. I wouldn't be opposed to that.
Slightly tangential question. What's the deal with the Hakunos? Are they part of the counterforce or?
No.
Wasn't there a thing where it was said that Vinci will die or something?
Da Vinci's on a set lifespan because of her dolls.
Will we pay the insurance?
Absolutely not. So, okay, let me touch on those because it was kind of rapid fire. New protagonists will be Ritsuka's and Mash's children. I mean, it would depend on how far in the future they wanted to go. I don't think they would want to go that far because it's kind of a lot. I would assume that I think the Senpai Kohai thing would be the best way to go about that. Da Vinci is set to die eventually, or at least her current manifestation is, but given how it's Da Vinci, she is absolutely in her power able to transfer her body again if she wants to. But, you know, it'd be interesting to see what they go for with that. I agree, no way the Earth is okay after all that timey-wimey stuff. Also giving the main classes some love would be nice. Extras got OC. Well, I mean yeah. Is Chaldea considered an entire league that is full of legend? I mean, no.
What about true ancestors or Waterverse stuff for Part 3?
That might be interesting if they wanted to touch on that.
It was stated that Mesh will have a regular girl's life at the end of Part E.
I mean, I don't know when that was stated, but also I don't trust a goddamn word that Nasu says. So take that as you will. Okay, and to answer the people who are asking about, wouldn't it be easier if we just died straight up? Maybe, but I feel like that's not a very satisfying conclusion. To just have it be that, okay, well, we finished the story and then we all just, we died and then we become a servant or something and get fucking Emia'd again, which would be really kind of lame. I think that if they wanted to take that route, if they wanted to take a really interesting route with that to keep the main characters relevant, what they could do is that at the end of Part 2, they revoke your your magical circuits. Something happens to your magical circuits so you can no longer control servants or summon servants, and then you go to the clock tower still a race shift specialist and have to train the new person if they're going to introduce a new protagonist. That would be an interesting way to go about doing that, I think. Is there a possibility of other Chaldea staff like Gordolf or Manoir in Part 3? I don't see why not. I mean, it all really depends on where they choose to go with it.
Also, what about the Pound servants? Since most, if not all, of them aren't really in the throne, said bargain noises.
The rules in Fate are stupid, so they'd find a way. When I say that they transfer the bond, I mean they literally transfer like that's why I showed this picture of this briefcase.
I can see them using good as a Kamina of sorts for an OMC, introducing the character as a mentor type to then kill it, and then turn it into a servant already deep into the game. Would the loss of previously attained servants cause a massive uproar if we moved to no protag?
I mean, maybe. It would all depend on how, if they wanted to go into, like, doing it so it's a new protagonist, how they went about that. You know what I mean? I mean, like, look, they can write, with the way how they've done this shit in the past, they can write any excuse in the book to be like, oh, I want you to meet these servants, and then you have a connection with them, and then you can summon them. I mean, we know... Well, we'll touch on that. All of the servants that have been connected with Chaldea are in the Chaldea's system. And so, theoretically speaking, anybody in Chaldea who has master privileges could summon any servant that Chaldea has come into contact with. Which is a weird thing that they don't really touch on with FGO, because, you know, it's just a thing that can happen. It's just like how, it's why Kadok is able to have somebody like Nitocris as a servant that he can command. That Nitocris is not our Nitocris, that was a separate Nitocris. But, you know, it's one who he was able to take control of and, like, command as a master because they were connected to the Chaldea system. It's two separate things. If you want to think of it like this, it's a proxy for the Throne of Heroes in how that operates. But, you know, we'll see. But I think we could see from there. It really does depend on what they want to do with Part 3. Whenever that happens. To answer the person who said, do I think that is the game going to end then? No. The earliest that the game could possibly end would be on the 11th anniversary, would be my guess. If they were going to end it, they would end it then. That is the time that would make the most sense for me. But as stated previously, I don't think that's going to happen because the game quite simply makes too much money. Or at least it's not going to end in a permanent way. And we'll get to that. Alright, I think it's a good time to pause questions. Well, hold on real quick. Well, can they attempt a breakout to rescue Ritsuka if he gets arrested by the clock tower? I don't think he's going to get arrested by the clock tower. I feel like that would be a really kind of lame way to go about it. You think JP will go on break? We'll touch on that. Alright. Let's get back to it. So. All of this takes me to my third point. Pretty much everything that I've said in the second could apply as the what they could do for an overhaul, at least in terms of the story. Realistically, we need to talk about some of the fundamental issues with FGO strictly as a game. It's over 10 years old and rolls out updates for quality of life very slowly. FGO has a bit of a reputation in the gacha sphere for being old and somewhat clunky. Many people want to see it get a straight-up overhaul from the ground up, changing basic features like combat, UI, presentation, mechanics, and so on. This is where I reward keen-eared listeners. Back in the first point, I had made mention that I don't see them ending FGO in a permanent way. However, I very well could see them end it in a temporary way, perhaps more so as a temporarily closed for maintenance sort of thing. Many people have noted that FGO has been slowing down in a lot of ways as the years have gone on. We stopped getting advanced quests, we stopped getting grail fronts, we stopped getting interludes, we stopped getting some recurring events, all of these seemingly with no real explanation. Now, this last year of FGO has been great in terms of creative content, with the addition of the Grand Trials filling a monthly niche of something new, but these last for 2 weeks each month and making it take up about half of the month's real estate, if you will. For this, I have seen some people call these time wasters or just flat out lazy. Now, while I don't necessarily agree with that sentiment, I can see where they're coming from, because these are being used to eat up time, as a simple yet challenging loop for the players to run. Choosing to look at the more positive side of this though, theoretically this time is being used to improve the game in a meaningful way. Ideally, the work put into this will be put into place with whatever is going to be coming next. So, what changes do people want in the game? First, I don't see them changing the combat because it is what the game is built on, right? We may see some new variations of what we have, but I don't think we're going to be getting rid of the overall turn-based style. However, we may see a proper auto farm implemented, as this has been the most requested change to the combat that people have wanted for years. And, while I do love FGA, it's a little bit janky at times. With Nasu showing some interest in Star Rail, I could see that being something that could be considered in the future. I do not, however, see them ever doing an NP skip option, because for God's sakes, on average it's 6 to 8 seconds, it's not that bad, y'all just fucking complain. Speaking of solutions that others have come up with, I can imagine them building a proper PC client, given that they are already encouraging people to use the Aniplex accounts for binding, and this would be an easy way to transition into this having some kind of real support. Plus, I think they would actually garner new interest in the game for the PC market. And as for UI, I could see them making some slight changes to the overall layout, but I'm going to be honest with you, I personally really like the way how it's laid out, with some with some exceptions. I really, really, really hate modern gacha game UIs in HUDs. I hate them because they do this. They shove everything onto the screen in these ugly ass clusters, or they have a circle around everything. And there's even games that I love to death, like Nikke or Uma Musume. It's overstimulation overdrive with how much shit they throw onto your menu and that you have to look at. FGO is pretty simple. It's just tabs. You have tabs that you go and you scroll through. It's alright, this says level up. It has all the things you need for leveling up. There doesn't need to be any more complicated than that. I don't understand why people are we need a whole new UI for this game. It's just no, we don't. I can see them updating aspects of the combat UI, for example, to show things like, I don't know, proper, like, what skills do with actual percentages and stuff like that. Or to upgrade things like, you know, be a little bit more transparent about, like, the enemies that you're fighting. Oh, is this thing a humanoid or is this a dragon? Take a look at it. Here, we can show that information. We don't need all this secret hidden data shit. We can have, like, a third tab when you click on the thing to be like, here's like, the information, like, the bestiary. Just make a bestiary for it. It would be so nice. It would be so nice to have something like that. I could see them, like, making little changes to it like that. I don't really want them to change, like, how the current setup for the game is, like, in the menus. I don't know. Maybe I'm in the minority on that, but, like, I've never really had an issue with it. It's just I couldn't tell you. It's like, okay, here's another one. Nikke. I love Nikke. I love Nikke to death, right? Like, so many menus. You have to click through so much shit to get anywhere in the Nikke menu. I love you, Nikke. If you sponsor me, I will make content for you. I love your game so much. I don't know what more you could do with the UI, but for God's sake, like, I appreciate that you, like, have it set up in these certain ways, but I don't know. There's something about it. It almost feels like it's too cluttered. But that personal opinion. Uma Musume. It's so much. The menu screen is so much. Now, I'll touch on that guy here in a second. If you were to ask me personally what I think they're going to do with Part 2, my answer is that they're going to start Part 3. Now, I don't necessarily know what that looks like. I don't know how that's going to play out, or even how we would play, or even like who we would play as. But the game has proven time and time again that they are not out of ideas. And while Nasu likes to talk about how he will step away, he's been saying that for years now. This is a reminder that during the 5th anniversary, I'm pretty sure it is, Nasu had made mention that he was thinking about slowing down his role in the game. You'll then remember that what he did immediately after that was to write Lost Belt 6, which is considered by some better than Fate Stay Night. Some people genuinely consider that to be the superior, like, Fate thing that's been written. Others think it's overrated. Y'all can argue about that in the comments. I'm not going to touch on that. That's aside from the point. But some people regard that as his actual magnum opus. And, you know, that's saying something. But that was 5 years ago. This is done in exactly the same way as how Hayao Miyazaki tends to do things. He keeps stepping away from his thing, being like, alright, no, for real, this is my last one. And then he goes and makes The Boy and the Heron, and it's a fucking masterpiece. Alright, no, this is my last one. Then he goes and makes Ponyo, and it's fucking amazing. He just keeps doing it. He just keeps having ideas and keeps being like, alright, no, hold on, wait, I've got more I want to make. Nasu and Miyazaki kind of operate in that same vein, where they're just like, no, really, this one's my last one. And then they sit and they have free time, and they're like, actually, add an idea. Both of them, they do the same thing, and that's great. Now, if we are to read between the lines, I think that starting with a new character is more likely than we think, because while Nasu does mention that the story has to come to an end, and he's really kind of emphasized that in this last year, I would predict that kind of just means that he's referring to Ritsuka's story and Nasu's major role as a writer in FGO. I would predict that he may step away and that a new writer may take over with new characters and us to use and go from there. So he could wrap up what's going on with the Ritsuka story, the Ritsuka and Mash story, and then a new writer picks up and has their own vision for what they want the next part of FGO to be, and to go from there. And that's not to say that Nasu is going to, like, step out and then never come back and, like, do anything like that. I bet you that if they do something like that, he'll still pop in and write stories. He may even write main story chapters. But it would be a way to, like, kind of take some of that weight off of his shoulders, and then for him to still not write Red Garden, fuck you. Sorry, Tsukihime fans, it's not gonna happen. It's just never gonna happen, and I'm gonna keep laughing at you for it. Even once he's done with FGO, you know what he's gonna do? He's gonna go play Honkai Star Rail. I hate to be the one to tell you this. He's gonna go play more Elden Ring. He's not gonna go write Red Garden. I'm sorry that you guys have to learn it like this. It's just, I don't think it's gonna happen. But, I mean, I've been wrong before. Maybe he will. FGO Part 3 is Red Garden would be the absolute funniest thing that he could do. Genuinely. But with all of this as well, assuming that it becomes something separate from FGO, but you can transfer your progress over, and I think that's important for a lot of people, is to know that whatever comes next, they can actually, like, get their progress sent over in some way, even if that's not like getting all of your even if that's not like getting all of your servants, getting some kind of like bonus, some significant kind of bonus, or some continuation because of how much time has been put into this game. I would assume that they would do something like that, right? And I think that if they do that, this would be the single best opportunity for them to like catch everyone up to the JP players by giving everyone a brand new, clean slate to work on. Which is to say, I could see them at the end of Lost Belt, or Ordeal Call, ending, conclusion, Anniversary 11. They go into a temporary hiatus, and they inform people that we are going to be going into a temporary hiatus with the game. And maybe they'll still roll out certain updates, maybe they'll still roll out like small events and stuff like that, and revenue will probably peter out a little bit, but I imagine that they'll slow things down and be like, alright, we're just gonna like do reruns and go from here, like with this, but we plan on coming back in like, I don't know, 2027 or 2028. And then when that happens, what we'll end up seeing is some new form of FGO. And by that time, we will have caught up on the NA side to what they're doing. We don't need all of those like reruns and stuff. I mean, if it's just reruns to get like servants and stuff, if nothing new is being released, it's a gamble because it's just like, okay, people might be getting fed up and being like, hey, we kind of like want new content, but other people may be like, okay, well, if they're working on like the next big thing, like the next game, and then they roll it out, and then everybody's caught up at the same time, that would be a perfect way to go about it. And I think that they do. I think that they want to get people. I could see them wanting to get people to be caught up with each other on all fronts, because it builds more hype that way. You know what I mean? I feel like it's a lot more fun if they could do something like where everyone is working on the same field and everyone gets to be like, oh my god, we gotta see how the story plays out, and like, I don't know. I for one would willingly get rid of Clairvoyance EX in order to like experience like seeing things released as they that's why I started JP, right? Because it's just like I want to experience the content as it comes out. But, you know, I mean, it's all of that is up into interpretation, and, you know, we'll have to see how people react to that. I guess the issue with trying to do something like that is that it is an absolute gamble to try and like tell people, hey, we're gonna stop making content for this for an extended period of time while we get the global region caught up, and then from there, hopefully, you guys are still interested in this property. And then we can make you all like play the new thing. I could see them willingly have it peter out a little bit to bring in new hype for it. You know what I mean? With new updates, in some new form of FGO. I feel like we may see something like that. But I don't know. I think it would be very, very interesting to see what comes next. And if they want to do like a whole new character, like a new player thing, a way how they could do that would be that you can start, and that your global code, you can use a global code on the part 2 or on the FGO 2 or whatever you want to say it is, on either one, and it gives you content. It gives you like servants depending on what you have. It updates with your account. But We'll see. I think that if they do that, even if they decide to do, like, filler for that time or something like that, which they may do, they may just release that all at once on NA and be like, hey, just release it as just, like, a side story thing that you can go and explore. I think that would be an interesting way to go about it. Now, I'll say this as kind of like a concluding thought. I don't think FGO is going anywhere. I really don't. And for all the things that we have that I brought up previously, like, I mean, if we're just gonna talk brass tacks, money, it makes a fuck ton of money, and the Japanese player base really likes it. I don't think that they're gonna get rid of that. They're not gonna get rid of that cash cow in a permanent fashion. But also, it's just like, you know, with a continued show that, like, the game isn't really slowing down in terms of, like, people who enjoy it and people who play it and things like that. I think that it's kind of it's always so interesting to see people who bemoan or, like, cry for the end of service. I know that there's a lot of people who they want it to end that way they can stop gambling because it's the only way that they can, but I don't know. Other people are enjoying it, and I think that's what's really important. So, you know, I don't think we're going into EOS, but if we do, come back to this video and let me know. Laugh it. If we enter end of service after that, you have full permission to come back to this video and call me any name that you want that will not get you banned on YouTube. And you know what? I'll sit and take it. It'll be my fault. I made such a bold proclamation. I am that confident, but you know, we'll see. We'll see where things go. I'm kind of interested to see how you know, things turn out with that. So with that, fellas, we will not conclude. I would like to know if any of you have any final thoughts. Let me know. Tammy is activated. I think it's fair to say that we enter end of service, but Ritsuka's story needs to end. I would agree that Ritsuka's story needs to come to an end. Holy shit, that's a lot of subs. Hey everyone with the 10 gifted community subs, thank you so much. If you receive one, please be sure to say thank you. I mean, that's why I think that they're going to start with a new character, because I do believe that the story of Ritsuka Fujimura and Mashkir Light is near its end, as them being the focus. And I think that it puts a really nice bow on it if they conclude it with this, and then you start as somebody else. You're a great content creator, probably my FGO content creator. Hey, thank you. Much appreciated. Glad you enjoy the stuff. Real question is, if a new pro tag is chosen, will they have an actual personality? I think that maybe. If FGO would end, what would I do for content? Nikke, Uma Musume, and other, like, fate-related things.
Didn't Nasu say Ritsuka's story should or will end at part R, but nothing about FGO ending?
I think that, anything that Nasu says...
Do I think EOS is coming soon? No, but the next 2 months will be very interesting to see.
I agree. I think that you shouldn't listen to anything that Nasu says. Which is a little bit hypocritical because I've quoted him a couple of times in this video, but quite genuinely. I don't think that you should listen to him, if not just because he tends to lie. Maybe not on purpose. I feel like he just changes his mind.
I would be disappointed if they made a new character for Part 3, cause that would mean there's a chance the foreigner's tough. I hope they would have to do with it when they would have no connection to it.
That's the thing. I think that this last part is going to deal with the foreigner stuff. I think that's kind of... all of the signs are pointing to this being the foreigner ordeal call, if you will.
Ritsuka becomes one with the root and appears from time to time to guide the new pro tag. Maybe they're the Mashu's child.
They're not going to do that. I don't think they're going to do Mash's kid thing.
I only want more Huyanzhou.
I agree. I think that... Okay, back with Nasu. I think that we're going to... I don't know. I could see them ending Ritsuka's story. I don't think that they're going to end FGO. And I do really like the idea of them maybe, if Nasu is really like, I'm kind of done with this right now, handing the reins over to another FGO writer. Now, if they want to if they want to do the funniest thing possible, they give it to Ken Urobuchi and just see what happens. What if they just let Ken Urobuchi write FGO? Which, if you somehow don't know who that is, that's the guy who wrote Fate Zero and also Madoka. And a lot of other good things. Those are the ones you probably know.
One of the greater trolls in the entertainment sphere, along with Ed Boon and Miyazaki. Do not trust a word they say.
Yes.
For an art chapter, funny black cat guy is going to be playable?
Maybe. Yeah, I don't know. If you're just joining in, I will say I have seen some people already asking questions that were already addressed. If you are curious, this whole thing, that's a lot of words.
Random thought, but this is a huge what if. What about we get not just a new product but two, say the two timeliness like arcade and mobile timeliness fused or overlapped, so we get both genders of Ritsuka becoming a new timeliness. This way we get a new idea that has to deal with the new timeliness correcting parts which were overlapped by both timeliness that are not compatible and thus are erasing themselves.
Okay.
We have new protons for this with Ritsuka, both versions acting as director.
Okay, I'm gonna say this. First of all, that is an interesting idea.
What if?
I like that Tammy says timelines as if it's the word cleanliness, and that's really funny to me. I could say, I mean, I don't know. It's there's. I guess here's the thing: when people are talking about the future,
timeliness funny.
It's so goofy. It's one of those things where it's just I don't think that they're going to. They have ideas. I guess is the thing. It's been proven time and again that they have ideas. They keep coming up with new ideas and new concepts, and they keep throwing them at us and being like, "All right, here's what we're gonna do. We think this is going to be interesting," and the vast majority of the time, it is. It's genuinely, they tend to make a pretty good story, by and large, I would say. So it's kind of, I don't know, it's a little bit interesting to see so many people be like, hey, FGO is going to end, right? We're going to end FGO with this, right? I'm like, FGO's getting EOS. Oh, they're so out of ideas. Oh my god. Where could they even possibly take the story anymore with this? It's just like, I don't know. I couldn't tell you. This is a massive copium, but I would love Mandricardo Saber. That'd be interesting. Mandricardo's cool. I feel like I'm kind of looping back in on myself with this. But yeah, I think that I guess that like my own personal closing thoughts are that I don't think FGO is going to end anytime soon, at least. We may see an end of the Ritsuka story and the MASH story. We may see a new beginning of some form. I wouldn't be surprised if we saw like an FGO 2 of some variety.
South American chapter or Shinji pseudo servant? Which one will come first?
South American chapter. Fuck Shinji. I mean, I've talked about this before on stream, but like one of my own personal like things I think would be like really cool, and I mean I brought this up here too, is if we do end up working with the Clock Tower, just like explore the world. Investigate like actual ongoing Holy Grail wars or something like that. I mean, if they really want to like tackle some of like the stuff, like there's enough mystery still available in the world, in the very specific timeline of FGO, that we could see some like cool things still happen. You know what I mean? I don't think that we're gonna just see them take this and dump it. Oh.
FGO Part 3, we raise all of the servants. $1 billion idea.
Or 2. That would be one hell of a way to kick off the new chapter. Or other types. Well, we just recently got another type. So, you know. I don't know. I don't know. I think that the other thing too is that if they were to start a whole new chapter and do a whole new thing with like in FGO 2, think of the new like servant concepts that they could pull out, or even like reinvent servants that we already have. Something I didn't bring up that I probably should have is that with hold on.
Final fight against that dude from the Kaleidoscope CE.
No, we work for that dude now.
Yay, a new type type stupid AF.
I lost my train of thought. God damn it. The fuck was I saying? God damn it, Tammy. Ugh. Oh, yeah, no, something I forgot to bring up is that with how servants work in FGO, or just not even just FGO, in Fate in general, the person who summons the servant has an impact on how that servant acts, right? So, like, it's part of the reason why, if you've read through Ordeal Call 1, why Giles is such a fucking, even more of a shitster than he is normally. It's because the dude who summons him is the number one shitster. He's even worse than normal because of that. Or how somebody like, Lan Ling is also, like, they're acting different. It's all because the master who summons them influences the servant. And while main, like, personality points are for sure going to, like, prevail, sometimes they do get warped. So it would be kind of interesting to see somebody be like,
if we
like
do get a hiatus side love for the goods to be their age called what they're canonically Archie or something, not for the naughty stuff, but just that we can drink with some of the homies.
Well, yeah, Ordeal Call 1 is very specifically alter egos, but you get my point. Like, okay, if you want a more like a different kind of one, the way how Gilgamesh acts around fucking Kotomine and the way that Gilgamesh acts around Hakuno are completely different. One of them is cold, ruthless, and a dickhead, and then the other one is cold, ruthless, a dickhead, but also goofy. The way how Gil acts around us and the way he acts around Hakuno are not too dissimilar, but he tends to care a little bit more about Hakuno.
Who is more likely to sculpturate Suk? The Clock Tower, the Atlas Institute, or the Wandering Sea?
Well, spoilers, the Wandering Sea is gone. The Clock Tower, I think, is the most likely. I think the race shift specialist thing is a genuine thing they could, like, try and do with that. What do you think the name FGO being so popular they maintain in, but change the meaning of the letters since Grand Order is finished, in case of a second game? Fate Grander Order. Fate Go-Kart. Fate Goon Order. Fate Grander Orderist. Freight Grand Order to go. Fate Gay Orgy. Fate Global Organization. Or Fate Global Operation. There you go. Galactic Order's not a bad way to go about that either, actually. Yeah. Alright, well, I think that for the sake of the video, we can still keep talking about this on stream, but I think for the sake of this becoming a video, we're going to cut this off now. If you're watching this on YouTube, because this is going to be cut and uploaded separate, and I'll probably end up privating this VOD, that way that the traffic goes to the video. But yeah, you know, if you're watching this, say hi on YouTube. Let me know what you think. Just, you know, leave a comment. Let me know what you think. If you truly, I want to know, if you genuinely believe that Fate Grand Order is going to enter a permanent end of service after this chapter, I want to know your explanation in a way that isn't trolling or being like, you know, just because I don't like it. I want to know what your actual reasoning is behind that, because I can't really think of a good reason why they would end it at this point. Alternatively, if you have ideas for what the next part could be, leave those down in the comments as well. I'd love to see what you guys think. I've laid out kind of like my basic... I've given this some thought before on like what I think things are going to be like, but it's hard, you know? It's hard to kind of determine like what they're going to do with a franchise as massive as Fate, and what the next step forward are going to be. And I know that people are kind of like, you know, people tend to be kind of hung up on the fact that FGO does take away time from other writers. Like, a lot of people blame the fact that, like, Requiem stopped getting chapters or books is because of Fate Grand Order, or the fact that, like, Einrar is taking so long to come out, or, like, all of that stuff. Or, like, even, again, I mean, I've been memeing it this whole time, but, like, Red Garden, for instance, coming out and shit like that. Or Mahoyo 2 or stuff like that. And I'm not going to sit here and act like FGO is like completely blameless and taking time away from some of those writers. I will sit and be like, I think that people are going to write what they want to write regardless. So, you know, don't know what to tell you on that one.
If we don't end up with these, what are the end of the game? Just staying offline, as in we can still pay it but with no future updates.
I think that there's a chance for something like that. I mean, again, that would fall into the idea that we enter like a temporary hiatus while they build FGO 2 to get the global servers caught up. I could see them kind of doing something like that. I could even see them doing something like, for that time, if you want to, you can do a replay and go all the way back to the beginning. You get to keep your servants, and there's like a cap on like how much... Make it like a Grailfront style cap on like how much AP you can have to bring to certain like fights, but then you get to keep your servants and take them and go through all like the story again if you want to, or replay, or do it again but it's a hard mode. That could be fun. They could do something like that. I don't know. We'll have to see. For now, though, if you're watching on YouTube, you have FGO New Game Plus. If you're watching on YouTube, hey YouTube, thanks for hanging out. Do all the shit I asked you to do before, but also, if you're watching, like, comment, and subscribe. Also, this is being filmed right now, live on YouTube. So, if you want to watch these live, because I'm going to do more stuff like this on the streaming side of things, come check out the streams. I stream 4 or 5 times a week, something like that. Yeah, come peep in, say hi. Join the membership, do a super chat or something. I don't know. Or sub with Prime. Hey, you got Prime? There's plenty primers in chat. Anyway. Fellas, thanks for hanging out. If you're watching on YouTube. Peace out, big love, bye-bye.